Dude, I'm like so high right now. Word of advice, if you're going to see this movie and you want the greatest experience, IMAX high. What's up, guys? My name is Crispy, and no, it's okay. I'm sorry. I try, but it's no. I am Kane. God, I love how he says that line. So, Ant-Man and the Wasp is, at the time of filming this, the latest movie in the MCU. It is directed by Peyton Reed and sees the return of Paul Rudd as Scott Lang, Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne, Jonathan Majors, Catherine Newton, David Dastmalchian. I do not know that name, I'm sorry. Katie O'Brien, William Jackson Harper, Bill Murray, Michelle Pfeiffer, Corey Stoll, and Michael Douglas. So in this movie, Scott Lang, since we last saw him, has become known as one of the guys who helped save the universe. Though if we're being perfectly honest here, the real movie in Endgame was the Rat. None of that would have happened without him. Rat saved the world. He's riding the glory and at the moment not really doing much else, while his daughter is a delinquent who has landed in jail for the second time as of this film. And just for the record, they don't really go anywhere with that plot. It's just sort of treated as, my daughter got arrested. That's hilarious. So as you know from the trailer, the Pyms and Cassie as well have invented a signal that goes toward the quantum realm, which leads to them being absorbed Tron style into the quantum realm and hunted by, you guessed it, Kane, the motherfucking Conqueror. And so, just like I did with Black Panther 2, I have to start an MCU movie by talking about the villain. Oh my god, Jonathan Majors as Kane the Conqueror is so damn cool. The dignity, the intensity, the greed, the self-righteousness, every feeling you are supposed to get with this guy, Jonathan Majors sells it perfectly. Whenever he is on camera, you just buy this guy's presence. Everything goes dark. All the comedy goes away. You feel the menace coming from this performance. It is just a shame that the writing could not step up to that, because if it had, you would have bought this dude being the next Thanos. He would have been a Thanos level, cool, fascinating villain. But he just wasn't, because the writing for him isn't quite as interesting. He's supposed to be this huge threat who has killed Avengers in different timelines, and frankly, this dude, if he went up against Scarlet Witch, he would get his ass whooped. I just don't really buy that this guy is supposed to be the next Thanos. He's still a pretty interesting character, but again, if the writing had just stepped up to the performance, he would have been so much better. Now I gotta talk about what I think of the other two Ant-Man films. The first one I still think is fun. The second one I thought was lame and a disappointment at first, but that was because I was still kind of thirsty for Endgame at the time, and when I got my satisfaction, I started to see Ant-Man and the Wasp as a charming little crime adventure disguised as a superhero movie. I've always found Ant-Man the character and Ant-Man the movies to be a neat little palate cleanser for MCU fans, as sort of the charming little filler before we get back to the main story, and you know what? I'm fine with that. Ant-Man is good as that. Paul Rudd does a good job selling the comedy, and believe me, he still does a really good job with this movie. Frankly, he brings some dramatic chops to the role that I forgot that he could do until Living With Yourself. They really try to turn this movie into an epic. They try to turn it into, like, the MCU's answer for Star Wars. They just go so big, so grand. It turns out they have civilizations upon civilizations, worlds within the quantum realm. It's crazy. But Ant-Man's not really the kind of character who is built for that. He's not built for the big shit that like Iron Man, Captain America, or Spider-Man are. Frankly, it would have been so much better if Spider-Man, if someone of that caliber had been the first one to go up against Kane, because like, Ant-Man, guys, come on. Plus, guys, you're missing so much potential not making Spider-Man the new hero of the MCU in general. Like, I know Disney and Sony had that little divorce, but guys, so much potential. And it's not even that well done and epic either, because on one hand, the story in general is very formulaic, been done to death before, and then when it's not being standard sci-fi fare that we've seen to death, that barely touches on any of these new characters and their situations, by the way. It goes into the usual sort of MCU focus on comedy that has been just killing this franchise, for me anyway, for a long time. Just for the record, I don't get why we are saying just now that the MCU is dying. And I'm being serious when I say this. The MCU might actually be in trouble because of this movie this time. I'm just gonna say it, this movie isn't necessarily bad, it's just really kind of dull, especially with the cut and paste it takes from sci-fi stories and the MCU, doing it over and over again, and apparently it's starting to show. It got the MCU's first or second rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, which I mean, guys, come on. The Incredible Hulk, Thor the Dark World, Iron Man 2, Captain Marvel, and Thor Love and Thunder. None of those movies get that same rating. Goes to show you how legitimate Rotten Tomatoes is these days. God, when is the last time those guys actually wrote a trustworthy review? I don't remember. But this movie finally got a rating that was really low, which shows that critics are getting tired of it, audiences are getting tired of it, and this movie apparently is not doing as well in the box office as a lot of other MCU movies did. Whenever I heard somebody saying the MCU was dying because of Phase 4, it's like, guys, we got some good moments in the shows. We got No Way Home. We got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I think the MCU is gonna be okay. It's tripping a little bit, but it's gonna be okay. Oh yeah, and Shang-Chi was pretty good too. That was Phase 4, I forgot about that. But seeing this movie and seeing how it's being responded to, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this movie was the first nail in the coffin for the MCU, especially because of how it felt so cut and paste. Well, maybe second nail, She-Hulk was pretty bad. I couldn't even finish that show. And I'm sorry, I really don't buy Ant-Man as this great epic hero. Like, in the third act of the movie, they really try to sell it. Like, Kane basically holds her hostage to get Ant-Man to do something for him. And big surprise, the villain goes back on his word. He fucking lies to him, whoop-de-doo. And Ant-Man, when he comes at this dude's fortress in the final act, he's like, "You gave me your word! That's our bond!" And he's shouting it while like going apeshit, and yeah, it's kind of lame. And of course you have all the bathos, you have all the jokes, you have genuinely tense moments cut short by jokes. Guys, if you're gonna make the MCU like a parody of itself, at least admit it. Don't bring along the people who are still trying to take it seriously. Just about every scene was like that, except for the scenes with Kane the Conqueror. And again, I really do appreciate how menacing they try to make this guy come across. I really appreciate how they just let Jonathan Majors do his thing. Like, you can tell that he is really trying to bring a gravitas to this character, and he fucking succeeds. And the movie does, for the most part, know how to step out of his way and not interfere with that tonally. It's just that I just really don't think he is the next Thanos. He doesn't come across as big a threat as Thanos at this time, and he's definitely not as interesting a character as Thanos. And we've got an entire dynasty of him coming our way, which, hey, I guess there's potential for character redemption in that. That could, hey, that is an interesting concept, and Kane is one of the best villains in the Marvel comics. So who knows, when the dynasty comes, he could suddenly become Thanos level amazing. But right now, I'm just not buying it with the way this character is written. I was gonna say that I had bashed this movie enough, but I forgot about MODOK. MODOK in this movie is basically built up a bit before he even shows up. He's basically Kane the Conqueror's badass, efficient assassin, right-hand man. What they do for this character is like, you remember the CGI for the Rock Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns? This is probably the worst CGI since that. I mean, my god, when they show MODOK's face, imagine if Megan the Doll, Mr. Electric from Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, an avocado way past its expiration date, and an almond cookie had a four-way, and that love child would be what MODOK looks like in this movie. Oh yeah, maybe a five-way, like maybe a minion got in there as well. That's appropriate. A minion got in there as well. Five-way, just like fucking five-way MODOK. And on top of that, once he actually shows up, he just gets kicked around a lot. He gets his ass whooped by more than one character. He gets made fun of in every scene where he's not fighting. I've never been that crazy about MODOK. I think he was just kind of a villain who was there in Marvel Comics. But yeah, I can imagine for the MODOK fans, they're probably going to feel how the Mandarin fans felt. Personally, I was cool with what Iron Man 3 did with the Mandarin because Ben Kingsley made it so damn funny. I've got nothing of solace to offer any MODOK fans. You are going to hate what they do with him in this movie. So I've noted a lot of the problems with this movie, and believe me, there are a lot of them. But I will say the visuals in this movie are really good. Not only the visuals, but the world building is really good too. You really buy that the quantum realm is its own world within worlds. And that's not even doing it justice. It's its own universe with so many different civilizations that have clearly come to survive through their own means. They sell it really well. And the quantum realm itself looks great. For all the copy and paste that the movie unfortunately does, I do really like how the movie makes me feel like I'm watching Tron all over again. Because there is a really strong Tron vibe in this movie, and I think any Tron fans in the audience will really like that. And there are also so many scenes where I get like a Mad Max vibe. I especially get a Thunderdome vibe from this movie, and you guys might not like that, but I've always found that movie incredibly underrated, so I really liked it. And they also have this really cool scene where Scott starts to clone, and like he has all these different possibilities of who he could become coming out of his body, and they're trying to get up to the top of this thing. They're all in discord, but then they start working together like a giant colony of ants, and that's how they get to the top. It's kind of confusing how they do it. Like, you look at the visual, you're kind of wondering why they're not dying from a lack of oxygen yet, and how they're managing to build up that whole fucking thing, but it's whatever. It's a cool visual, and I like how they do it like an ant colony. So all in all, it's definitely not a bad movie by any means, but it is kind of dull, kind of boring, and unfortunately kind of lame. The kind of lame that I do think is probably going to lead to the death of the MCU if they continue a pace like this. Good news is it's not as bad as Thor: Love and Thunder. Shit, you know what, never mind, I'm not really sure if that's true. I think at least in terms of keeping the unnecessary comedy out, it's kind of better than Thor: Love and Thunder. It's not bad with the comedy in that respect, but it does still throw too much in there, man, and I'm really getting tired of how the MCU just feels more copy and paste and not the same risks that were taken when they started an entire cinematic universe with as small a character as Iron Man, or the risk of them doing an entire superhero team up, something that had never been done before, slowly but surely building us up toward this big villain who they really fucking delivered payoff on when he finally showed up. There was a time where the Marvel Cinematic Universe took risks. There was a time where it earned the success that it got. Now there's no risk anymore. There is just a formula meant to get butts and seats and Disney revenue, and that's kind of disappointing. That's what I was reminded of with this movie. That's what the MCU has been reduced to, and I feel like it's got a lot of climbing out of that hole to do. On that very deep note, I am going to give this movie a 65% on the crispy meter. Mismatched hoggle boggle wet fart copy paste of basically just a lot of movies we've seen. I did still really like the Tron vibe. Why haven't we gotten more Tron? You guys ever watch Tron Uprising? That show was dope, man. Why did Disney have to go and cancel that? Jesus Christ. And we can't even get David Warner back to play Sark or the MCP because he's gone. Fucking hell, I missed that, man. You know what? If he'd played a character in this movie, he would have brought it up a real peg. I just really felt like I should have mentioned David Warner there. I still miss that guy. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like, share, subscribe. Come join the Crispy Kingdom. We are all royals here. I also have a gaming channel. I have a clip channel. I have a Twitch. And also come check out the Global Nerds podcast. We've got so many interviews with so many big actors coming up. We just recently reviewed Catherine Sutherland, the original Zeo Pink Ranger in the Power Rangers franchise. And we got many more actors coming up who I cannot mention yet, and big plans that I don't really want to risk snitching on. That is all I will say, but big things are coming. Once again, this has been Will Crispy, and that's it. The Crisp is spoken. Take care. If you suddenly dumped reboot graphics onto the love child, just like, here you go, baby. I don't know why I imagine like reboot graphics being put in a bucket. I was just really thinking of flex tape for a second, and like, you like how you can put it in a bucket and it's just like unliftable. Flex tape is better than this movie. God, I would love them as a sponsor.